Hey everybody, Jake from Umbrella IT Services here. Hope you're having a great day. Today we're going to be speaking with Rob Malec from Businessworks Consulting. Rob helps other business owners overcome sales obstacles. He helps them develop sales departments, he helps them refine existing sales departments, he equips them with the tools they need to achieve success, and he taught me a lot during this interview. I hope you find it as valuable as I did. So without any further ado, let's jump into it. I'd like to give Rob Malec a big thank you for coming on today and talking with us about sales consulting, sales training, and his book, Sell More by Selling Less. Rob, thank you very much for coming on today. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? How did you get into the sales consulting field?
Yeah, I've been doing what I am doing now for just about 19 years. How did I get into it? Well, I made the decision that I wanted to go solo. I've been a sales manager, sales rep, sales manager, sales vice president, and decided I wanted to go solo. So I just hung my shingle. I really had a desire to help people, to grow their business, and everything came from that.
Very cool. How would you define sales consulting exactly?
Well, there's not a lot of them out there, interestingly. There's a lot of sales trainers, people who will help you with your sales skills, meaning how well, efficient, effective you are in leading sales interactions with buyers. What I do is a little bit different, and that is to help set up the foundation for a company and its salespeople to sell. So sales process infrastructure, so the steps you follow to make a sale, what's that recipe, sales methodology, how you go about executing on those steps to bring a sale to life and turn a lead into a paying customer. So laying down that infrastructure is different than just the one piece of helping people to improve their sales skill. But laying down the foundation allows a company to be successful where they are and to scale up and to add salespeople and have them be successful quickly and, relatively speaking, easily.
Gotcha. And do you notice that startups benefit the most from this? Is it established companies struggling with these kind of things? What does your ideal client look like?
Well, it's not only startups that struggle with it. Companies of every size wrangle with this every day. So, you think classically about the most highly trained IBM sales reps. They have entire departments that exist only to help, excuse me, make the sales process more efficient, more effective. It's sort of that 1% mentality, how to go 1% better every day.
That makes
And we have
sense.
thousands of salespeople, of course, that 1% better will multiply and exponentially generate more revenue. If you're a startup and you have no infrastructure, startups need to be the best salespeople. They need to not only sell their idea, sell their dream, they need to convince investors to give up 7 figures worth of money to invest in their future.
Yeah, no
And
kidding.
mid-sized companies will also wrestle with it's been owner operated, they've bootstrapped, they've done well for themselves. But now the sales group is generating as much as they can. The business owner would like to work more on the business than necessarily in the business. And they wrestle with, well, how do I do that? How do I let go of the sales function without having it wander and stop producing the lifeblood of the company, which is revenue? So companies of all sizes wrestle with this.
That makes sense. In your experience, is it more the system itself that's important that you described earlier, and the processes and tracking all of this stuff that gets you that extra 1%, or is it the one superstar on the sales team and trying to track down other superstars to join your sales team, or is it a little bit of both?
No, it's absolutely the system. If you are a company that has one superstar salesperson and you're reliant upon them, and if they decide to go elsewhere tomorrow, you are in big trouble. That's not a good place to be at all. So when you get really square as a company on what a salesperson should be doing and have it documented how they should be doing those things, as salespeople progress and your salesperson becomes a manager or the like, they can easily backfill and integrate new salespeople into the company and have them ramp up to success far more quickly than if you don't have that foundation laid down. In that scenario, no foundation, often you'll have to wait 12 months for a salesperson to be productive.
Wow.
With that function laid down, you can be productive in 3 to 6 months. And that's what I've been seeing recently.
Gotcha. So it really is a full year of turnaround for a new salesperson to kind of get their claws in, get the engine revving, and start to see results.
If you don't have your foundation,
Hmm.
absolutely.
Wow, that's crazy. So as part of a foundation, I've been looking into. I'm just starting to dip my toe into the field of sales here myself as a startup, and I've been looking into a lot of different CRMs. Am I wasting my time with CRMs as a small business owner, or is this a crucial tool that I should be spending more time on?
Oh, absolutely crucial.
Mm,
Got to have one.
okay.
Even as recently as 5 years ago, they not everyone had a CRM,
Hmm.
but now because there's so many, and they're all quite good, and the user interface and the mechanics of using them are so simple that, quite simply, you are selling with one and a half hands tied behind your back if you don't have one.
Yeah, no, I'm starting to get a little bit overwhelmed here because we've started to do marketing and we've launched our new website, and I've got a CRM and a ticket management system for our existing clients. But now that we've got all of these prospects and there's a lot of incoming leads, I am starting to start to feel like I'm juggling a lot. My calendar's starting to get a little bit crazy. So it's good to know that I'm making a good decision moving to the CRMs. What would you say makes up some good features of a good CRM? I know that we've spoken briefly about how you like to use Zoho CRM, but what are some fundamental staples of Zoho or other CRMs that you recommend to your clients that make you recommend them?
The fundamental staples are first and foremost that it does, in fact, have a representation of your sales funnel so that you can understand for each and every opportunity you're working on where in the, I'll call it stage of production, that sales opportunity is.
Hmm.
Some people say, well, the early stage stuff, I don't really need to track that. And that's absolutely the most important piece to track.
Hmm.
Those deals that are closest to turning into money and turn into a closed won lost deal rather, those are all very top of mind. It's all the stuff early stage funnel that's where the money is, and that as you work those through and convert them, and some fall away because they're naturally not a fit and the like. Those ones are as easy to lose track of. So you do need to have the sales funnel represented, absolutely. They all have a task reminder function, but you need to use that function so that every sales opportunity you're working in, if someone was to look at the CRM, you would see that there is a record of what's happened and there's a task reminder for the next thing to happen in the future. So you need to use that diligently. The other piece now that's quite easy is to have your email connected to your CRM. And so you can still use Gmail and Outlook to send your emails outbound, but having the connector will allow those emails to be connected into the opportunity record within CRM. And that makes it super, super easy for you to track your opportunities, what's happened, and what should happen next. Because if you don't have that, it's hard when you sit down to do your business development work. You have an hour or so set aside to do it if you're a business owner. If it takes you 20 minutes to get organized and pull the thread from your last business development session, now you're down to 40 minutes of workable time, and it takes you 20 minutes to sort of get in the swing of it, and you end up with 20 really productive minutes. Using a CRM effectively, 5 to 7 minutes to check your notes, and then you've got 53 minutes of productive time. You'll generate far more sales if you use a CRM for sure.
Gotcha. So you mentioned a lot of stuff there that I kind of want to dig into a little bit because, again, just getting started here, so this is very educational. In terms of a sales funnel, what does that usually look like for you? Is it different based on if people are selling products, if they're selling services? I've heard that it's good for most people to have several different funnels active at one time. What do you usually recommend as a beginning sales funnel, or is that something that's very unique to the businesses and there is no umbrella solution?
No, the mechanics of selling and the sales funnel are somewhat like the golf swing. You know, the components are set,
Yeah.
and they're classic, and they're always there. How you apply them will vary based upon, sort of the lie of the ball and the distance to the hole and the wind and all that kind of stuff. But generally, your sales funnel should be divided into your leads, into first meeting. I call it a diagnosis meeting, first pass diagnosis meeting, which is when you're trying to learn what pain points they have. Deep dive diagnosis meeting is the next stage where you're going more deeply and trying to quantify the pain points they have. Solution, that phase when you're talking about what might your solution be to meet those needs, and negotiation, which is now you're negotiating price and you're trying to close the business. So any business could do well with those 5 basic funnel categories. You can divide them up further if you like,
Yeah.
but those are the 5 core ones that you should have.
That's awesome. And when you're doing prospecting and these kind of things, I've heard that it usually takes about 90 days to get a sales funnel operational and working. Is that true in your experience?
You should be able to have a sales funnel up and working inside of 4 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow.
And by that, I mean, you have your CRM selected, you have it configured, you have the sales funnel stages all blocked out, and you start working the funnel and moving opportunities through. If it takes longer than 4 weeks, generally it means you picked a CRM that's more complex, or generally that means you lack clarity at that moment in terms of how you want to approach the sales function, how you want to begin filling the top of the funnel, and how you're going about the mechanics, if you will, of moving deals through.
Gotcha. And when people are starting to implement these tools and these kinds of things, is there any specific mindset that they should have, or any sort of contact specifically that the contact methods they should be considering? Because I maybe this is still happening, but I don't imagine there's a lot of door-to-door sales still going on, especially in a city like Vancouver in 2020, given the current health crisis. Have you noticed that any effects of COVID on salespeople? Is phone becoming a lot more common? Remote meetings, email sales are picking up, or is the old school shaking people's hands and kissing babies still the way to go?
No, none of that is possible at all now. And over the last several years, it's been trending more toward remote meetings and the like. And of course, now it's our only option. And we can't go out and meet people. And only now are some clients saying, okay, come in. But they're also being very diligent around social distancing. What I've seen in Vancouver is, I had a client last week who said, okay, well, we need a demonstration. This was for another client's products. Our boardroom's limited. We can only have so many people, so you can only send one person. And so that's how diligent people are being. So now it's comfort in reaching out electronically. It's comfort in using tools like LinkedIn and the like to generate your leads.
Yeah.
And the part about what's the best mindset to have, I would say in sales, and if you're new to sales, is don't take it personally, which is to say you got to reach out to lots of people.
Yeah.
And most of those people won't have a need for your products or services at that time.
Yeah.
And if they don't, they likely won't reply to you if you're sending email or the like.
Yeah.
And that's all it is. So if you look and you're saying, well, the way I'm going about my outreach is my authentic voice. I think I'm being appropriate in the way I'm approaching people. If they either say no or they don't respond, that just means they don't have a need at the moment, and keep looking.
Yeah. And how do you follow back with people that you've messaged already, but they haven't responded, without being spammy or pushy? Because that's one of the biggest reasons why I never kind of dove into sales, because I just didn't feel like I wanted to wedge myself inauthentically into people's lives. But whenever I did manage to do outreach, I noticed that people were usually very positively responding to my messages and these kind of things. But for those folks that I never did hear back from, I just kind of left it and never circled back around, even though somebody had recommended them to me, or they'd clicked on some part of my website and downloaded something. How do you recommend people can reach out again without feeling kind of spammy?
Well, there's 2 parts to that. If it's someone who you're reaching out to, I use a 4-week protocol to get started.
Okay.
Which is email and voicemail in week 1, email or voicemail, one or the other, in week 2. Week 3, you can let it rest if you want, or back to either email or voicemail. And week 4, it could be, if you feel that, well, this is not really going anywhere, then you could say, I'm here when you're ready, if you'd like some help, a message like that. Or you can set the stage for the next series of follow-ups. And so that's the piece where people often have questions. And it relates to authentic and what does authentic mean to you. And to reach out to someone monthly, depending upon your product or service, may feel very natural for you. For myself, it's about every 3 months. And my reach out, usually the pushy part and people feeling what's authentic, they're two different things. Generally, pushy is when you're asking for things. And to stay top of mind, you don't need to ask for anything. You can simply reach out and say, for instance, it could be have a great summer kind of theme to your message. So here's what's up in my business. Here's what I'm seeing by way of sales. Have a great summer.
Gotcha.
You don't need to ask for anything. You don't need to say, hey, let's talk. Hey, if you need my services, click on this link. And that's the method that I use. I think, in the early stages of your reach out, you'll have those links and that content there. And for the stay in touch piece, people know why you're staying in touch.
Yeah, of course.
And yeah, so what I've found is that there have been instances where 6, 7, 8 emails go by. I don't hear from the person I'm emailing to, and all of a sudden they respond, and we do a big project together.
Yeah.
And often people will say, "Thanks very much for staying in touch with me. I've been busy," or whatever the case may be. It's just that funny intersection of timing where you reach out, they happen to have a need at that time where you can help, and then they'll respond. But you could do that 10 times previously and they don't have the need, and so they don't respond.
And I like the fact that, again, it's not all about the hard sell, because I've always been very good at soft selling, and I've been very good at building relationships with people, but I'm just not good at saying, like, give me money, this is what I want, you need this service, da-da-da. If people are clearly having an issue, then I like fixing their problems, but I don't like pushing things on people that's not a perfect fit for them, which is why we have very, very good customer retention, above 95%, and very good customer satisfaction ratings, because no one has things that they shouldn't need. But it's also sometimes resulted in things where I haven't properly upsold other services that would have complemented the main service. In your experience, again, nowadays that everything is kind of getting commoditized over like LinkedIn, for example, I have, I don't know, 15 messages from people saying, hello, I'd like to sell you this web design service, or hello, we do this programming service, maybe you're of interest. How do you recommend sales consultants and other business owners can kind of differentiate themselves from this flood of private messages and this sea of emails that people are receiving nowadays?
That's a great question. LinkedIn is becoming a way to get marketed to these days. And
yeah, exactly.
I know there can be an irritation factor for sure. The way to differentiate yourself, I believe, using LinkedIn is using connections to connect you to others. So if there's someone that you really want to meet that you think is a perfect fit for your business, these days, many people are on LinkedIn, and so the number of degrees of separation between you and people you want to meet is often it's just one. And so if you want to stand out, then ask that person in the middle that both you and this person you want to meet know to introduce you. And so I developed a series of, basically email templates to use. So I would email the person that knew both of us and ask them if they could connect us on email. And I asked for that specifically because I found that LinkedIn connections, not everyone, despite people being active, not everyone reads their LinkedIn messages every day.
Guilty.
And so doing the connection through email was better meaning more effective. And the person, and if it's someone that I knew well, the people would invariably say, yeah, sure, I'm happy to help you get connected. I knew they were a bit lost in terms of what to say. And so I would send them an email template and say, here's an email template, you cut, copy, paste, edit, whatever way you like, and send that to the person, copy me, and that will get us all connected. And invariably, I would see that exact message just copied and pasted into the email connecting me to the other party.
Yeah.
And that would help separate, absolutely, for sure. Some people are still using LinkedIn for mass marketing, and I'm not necessarily against that. I haven't seen it be effective for myself and my business. My business comes from referral, much like other small businesses. But LinkedIn definitely has its place.
Yeah. And when people are helping you out like that, do you offer them incentives, or how do you usually do that? Because I usually have a lot of people offer to help me out with that kind of stuff, which is great. But I've never reached out to someone saying, "Hey, can you introduce me to this guy?" And And how does that go in your experience?
Right. Well, the thank you part is interesting because there's the notion of, well, should I give them some sort of thank you? Should I give them something monetary? Um, what I found is this, that first and foremost, people really want to help. And if you're a entrepreneur, business person, those around you know that it's not the easy path. And so they're
Mm-hmm.
quite willing to help. And when you introduce, well, should I give money? It gets kind of weird because, how much money is too little money going to be an insult? Is too much money going to make them feel awkward? Um, and so I would default to something thoughtful. So if you got a nice referral from someone, to send them something as simple as a Starbucks card or an Amazon gift card or even flowers or the like, that's thoughtful by design, not expensive. But because people really like to help, that positive feedback is awesome.
That makes sense.
If it's a business to business relationship where you have, I was involved in a lead group a number of years ago where we had a shared agreement that if one person brought me business, that I would give them 10% of that deal. But that was set up front.
Yeah.
And we all agreed upon that, and we were all comfortable with the number. And that's why monetary worked. But I found otherwise monetary becomes awkward.
That makes a lot of sense. I usually do that for my clients as well, just generally speaking around Christmas time. And I'll start working in those little thoughtful gifts as well. I know that a really good one that I always resort to is the manicure pedicure kind of thing. Just get a gift card for something like that. It's usually around $100, give or take $20, depending on where it is. And ladies love it. Grab the guys a pair of AirPods or something like that. Just whatever, right? Think about the person that you're giving it to, and then kind of give them something nice that shows you put a little bit of thought into it, and usually works out really well. So, and I do like the percentage-based business-to-business relationship as well. That's great to know. So what other kind of strategies and guidelines do you usually recommend people implement while they're working with the CRM stuff? Because it seems to me that the processes are going to be the most important part of what we break down today. So I know that you would be wanting to have this introduction set up via LinkedIn or via email, so that you can set up your diagnosis meeting that you were talking about earlier. So when I go into one of those meetings, what would be some of the mindsets and strategies that I would want to bring with me to that meeting?
In my estimation, I believe that sales is helping.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I believe you do not need to be an extrovert. You do not need to be a person who loves to talk a lot to be great at sales. Often the opposite is better. If you're a person who likes to listen, ask questions, and learn, you're in a far better position to help people, because that allows you to give room for the buyer to speak and helps you to learn their needs. And so in terms of CRM and selling overall, it's every day. And that not a day should go by that you don't do something to put a drop in the bucket of business development, be that reaching out to existing contacts, reaching out to new contacts that you're trying to make, or moving deals forward. So that's the first thing, is every day. When it comes to your sales meetings, it's prepare to help. And by what I mean by that is prepare your questions. And so selling, to my mind, is understanding people's current situation. And of course, this is all relative to where you can help with your products and services, how they're doing things today, where they would like to be by way of, what's their desired improved future state as it relates to that. And what's in the middle? What are the pain points in the middle that they're experiencing, challenges, sticking points that are stopping them from getting to where they want to go?
Gotcha. That seems really good.
Understanding those things puts you in a position to then, I think, meaningfully and in a relevant way, talk about what you have to offer as a solution, rather than, if you flip it around, if you were to come in, hi, nice to meet you, and start talking about all the great things you have. In the back of the buyer's mind, they're saying, well, that's all wonderful, but how does that help me?
Yeah.
We haven't talked about what my needs are and how you can improve my own situation.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Not every A hammer is not good for every utility, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
So let's say that I've established a good sales team. I've got everybody, or so let's say I've established a good sales process. As a small business owner, I'm noticing I'm starting to close a high percentage of my leads. People are really happy with everything. They're saying, oh, transitioning from another IT company to you has been so easy, and your team is so great, da 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 da. And I'm ready to hire my first sales rep. What do you recommend the very first part of that process looks like when you're trying to find, or is even before you're trying to find somebody? So you've got your sales process down, it's working, you're ready to expand your sales team. What is step number one?
Step number one is job description, which at first blush sounds kind of strange. Well, I know I want someone who's going to sell, but inside of the job description, what exactly are they doing and how much of it are you going to ask them to do? So do I need to tell people you have to generate your own leads, or I'm giving you leads? How much does this person have to travel? What size of deal are they typically selling? 5-figure, 6-figure, 7-figure? Do they have to manage anybody else? What are the requirements for CRM and the like? So you need to get that job description really clear so that when you post it, a person will read it and say, oh, okay, I totally get what's involved in this job. It's not vague, it's quite clear. And the places to post today, your options as far as finding that salesperson, you can hire a recruiter if you have that money. And there's all the job posting boards. LinkedIn is very effective for job posting. Indeed, all the other platforms where you can post job descriptions and people can post resumes and the like. And then in the hiring process, really you need to have a pulse check interview. Okay, does this person seem to have credibility? Basically, do I think at first blush they're a fit? Second interview is to understand their sales history and answer the question, is what was sufficient to make them successful in their previous role sufficient to make them successful in working at my company, in my industry, with my situation as it stands? The third interview is a show me interview, which is they should present you something. Even if it's very simplistic, my first 90 days in the job, here's what I'm going to do. And the reason we have this show me interview is it will let you sit in the seat of your customers and experience what this person has to bring. And the last interview then would be culture check. If there's anyone else that needs to interview this person at your company, and then you can make the final decision. But where business owners typically will fall off is they'll meet someone, they'll really like them, and wow, that person likes to talk, they're hired. And they skip the skill check and they skip the show me part. And then, you've hired someone, you offload the selling to them, and oh, thank goodness I've got someone doing this. And then they get 6 months, 12 months down the road and find out it didn't work out. And they're left wondering why. And so what I found in the interview process, and I've had clients say this, where they go, prior to this interview process, I would have hired the first 3 people I met. I really liked them. I fell in love with them. But in the end, we got a salesperson who was effective that we really love as well. They had both hearts.
That's so great to know that it's usually 3 to 4 interviews. And then I really like the show me part of it, and not getting too emotionally attached on day one, because my technical hiring process looks very similar to that. So it's good to know that the sales process should also not be hey, how are you? Good. Oh, I like the way you're talking. I like the way you're moving and shaking. You're hired. So that's really good to know. How do you recommend that you can 2 questions here. How can you filter out people that are going to be the snake oil salesmen, who are going to be able to recognize that this is a startup, or this is an inexperienced sales team, sales manager, etc., and they're going to be able to tell you what you want to hear? And question number 2 would be, what are some traits that you would recommend that you look for, especially when you're just developing a team, and you're not going to have like a junior? You're going to need somebody who's going to be able to come in and kind of pave their own way, and build upon the foundation that you've set up.
Right. To the first part, having a 4 interview process, the person's true personality will show after hour 4 or 5 or 6 that you spent with them.
Oh, okay.
And so this notion of snake oil salesman or the like, often if we get swayed by someone who is a sort of very articulate, someone who they quickly bond with you, and in the first half hour, you feel like you're best friends. After the multi-interview process, their true personality will show through, and then you can determine, okay, that's all sizzle and no steak, or it's both. The piece about expectations, what's required for them to do that, if this is a startup or the like. You really need to be candid with people and give them the hard reality, if you will. The job market today is unfortunate. There's a lot of great salespeople who were let go from their previous position due to COVID. And there's people who really, really want a job. And so we need to be, I'd say, brutally honest with, if you're a startup, we are a startup. We don't have money for Zoom info. We're using the free version of CRM right now. We don't have travel budget. And this is how many paying customers we have, and we need this many more. Really be clear with people what they're buying into. Because if there's any great, and by the way, you have to repeat it about 5 times.
Yeah.
For it to cut through that person's desire to have a paying job. I have seen situations where a salesperson will come in and they heard startup, but they get in there and all of a sudden they're spending 90% of their day prospecting.
Yeah.
And they go, hold on, I'm a senior salesperson. I don't like to do that anymore.
Oh,
I
okay.
didn't really understand this was part of the job. And the hiring parties had said we're a startup, and they go to the offices in a startup environment, but for some reason there was a disconnect there. So I'd say be brutally honest, be prepared to say it at least 5 times, and have the person really clear, and this goes back to the job description, what their duties and tasks are. Paint a day in the life for them in vivid colors.
Yeah.
And also have them understand what resources they have and what resources they don't have, and be really clear. Here's what we're expecting you to bring to the table: sales process knowledge, etc., sales funnel management, and the like.
Yeah.
And in asking for those things in a multi-step interview process, you'll be able to see if they have them or they don't.
Gotcha. And you mentioned there that you might hire someone who's a senior sales consultant or senior sales rep, and they might not be used to prospecting and doing these kind of things. Now, if you've got your process nailed, I'm assuming you're going to understand what expectations, responsibilities, and deliverables exist for that person. So is it best to shoot for the stars, like someone in my position, to find somebody to immediately take over the sales role in the business? Or is it better for me to get someone who's going to be doing lead generation, because that's personally what I need, and then have them grow into that role? In your experience with either established businesses or startups, what's usually the best fit when first starting to build out that sales team?
The best fit is to hire the person who is on the cusp of being promoted to the next role.
Gotcha.
What I found is if you hire the person who's been promoted 4 times, they don't want to go backwards and do the heavy lifting work.
Yeah.
They're out of prospecting mode, and they think, well, my skill set is to be put to a higher task, which is closing business. If you need prospecting, hire that person who has 2 years experience, and they want to get into an outside now, meaning outbound sales role, not just lead gen. Find that person. They're at their current job. They may be frustrated. Maybe there's nowhere for them to go. You have a lot of runway for them. They still need to use the skills that they're great at, but that can quickly turn into a full sales job and less of the business development if they happen to be good at that. What you want to get to as a business owner is if you have that person and they become a salesperson and you really get dialed in on your process and methodology, then you as a business person can say, well, if I hire this person at X thousands of dollars investment in a year, they can now be productive in 3 to 6 months. If I can carry that first 6 months of salary, knowing that they're going to start bringing in some sales around that 6th month, okay, that investment works for me. I can do that. If you don't have those nailed down, you hire a salesperson and they simply do their best to make their way. It's hard for you to scale because you don't know exactly how your investment's going to work out when you invest in a second person and a third. If that first person is great at filling the funnel, they'll have generated enough work for you to hire another salesperson who can turn that into money. They increase the sales funnel, and then you hire your third salesperson, and that's how that would go.
That makes a ton of sense. So I've got a revelation here, but before we move on to that, quick question would be: do you recommend incentivizing salespeople through just a flat salary, or do you recommend having commission or pure commission, or what's been the best system in your experience? Or again, is it something that is not an umbrella solution? It depends on the business itself.
Generally speaking, salespeople should have a commission portion to their compensation.
Mm-hmm.
Your total target compensation would be a combination of base salary plus commission.
Mm-hmm.
The
Okay, interesting.
compensation, yeah, so the compensation should incentivize the behavior that you need from a salesperson. So
Yeah.
if you need growth, then don't have a big fat salary and a small commission, which incentivizes a salesperson just to manage their existing accounts.
Mm-hmm.
They need a big commission so that when they bring in a win, both of you win. And that's how they make their living. And if a salesperson doesn't like that setup, but that's what your business needs, then they're just not the right salesperson for you.
Gotcha. And when you say big commission, what would that look like? So is that a 50-50 split? So if you want to get that person to rapidly grow your company and you want to try to get them to hit a six-figure salary or something like that, doing 50-50, is that a big commission, or would a big commission be 70% and the salary is 30%? What does that look like?
So very simply, to set compensation, you look at, okay, well, total target compensation is a combination of base salary plus commission.
Mm.
What's the total target compensation number? Is it 50,000, 60,000, 70,000? And then you can imagine in your mind's eye like a slider where you say, well, if I want them to earn this much at 100% of quota, then it needs to be this much salary and then that much commission. If we have a sale, which is a six-figure sale, meaning there's more absolute dollars inside of the margin, you could have a 40% salary, because when they bring in one big sale, then that would be a bigger commission check. I've seen as high as 70% commission and 30% salary. That was a more mature business where the salesperson could count on a certain amount of revenue coming in and some lead generation help.
Yeah.
If you're just new starting out, it's better to be more like 65% base salary and 35% commission, and have that commission uncapped. So the more they sell, the more they make.
Yeah.
And if they brought home $1 million sale for you tomorrow, that you would pay them, and you would pay them well for that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So yeah, something that you kind of triggered there is what you're recommending in terms of hiring a salesperson is exactly what I'm doing in terms of hiring my technical folks. So sales is simply another technical skill to learn. But as a business owner, I'm a geek. You know what I mean? I'm an IT guy. I don't understand the technicalities of sales the same way where if I were to ask you to explain how to purchase a server or ascribe a server to a client, I wouldn't be able to determine what I need in terms of a salesperson. So do you recommend any resources that people can look into to learn more about the technical side of sales, and just kind of have a crash course where they can begin to use the same technical processes that they're using to hire their internal staff to hire their sales staff?
Well, to learn about sales, there's a couple of base courses that I would recommend. Dale Carnegie, believe it or not, has a great program called the Sales Advantage Program. And if you have no experience in sales and are afraid of going into a sales call because you don't know what to expect, this 8-week program will walk you through all of the nuts and bolts and the basics of being prepared, introductions, building rapport, asking questions, all those sales 101 things. There's also there's a Canadian Sales Professionals Association, the CSPA, I believe it's called, and they also have a series of courses that are great for sales building blocks. And then from there, of course, it's an unlimited landscape of books and courses and things that you can buy depending on how much time and effort you want to put into learning. Some sales books, some go-to sales books, if I was to point it down to two that in my experience are really, really good. If you look at Spin Selling by Neil Rackham, that's a great book that gets you deep into asking questions and good solid sales questions. And The New Strategic Selling is another book, which is by Stephen Hyman and Diane Sanchez, which is a great book on creating sales strategies. If you were to do anything after your 101 training, those two books will get you started.
That's
and
awesome.
Then there's a whole wealth of other material out there.
That's great. Thank you very much for those resources, because I think a lot of folks are going to benefit from those. So once people have gotten through those books and they're all set up and they're a little bit more advanced, what are some of the things that you see people struggling with usually? Is it refining the sales strategy? What kind of issues come up?
The typical struggle is around filling the top of the funnel.
Hmm.
And that struggle comes from not doing it every day. And it sounds overly simplistic, but that's all it is.
Yeah.
It's not the fun work. There's not a lot of positive reinforcement. And after a week of doing it, you go, oh, that's no fun. I'll go work with people who are responsive, people who know and like my service and are paying me money already.
Yeah.
And that's the number one struggle, is keeping the top of the funnel full.
Gotcha. So yeah, the only book that I've ever read about sales is called Fanatical Prospecting, and they said pretty much exactly what you just said, which is you've got to be doing it every single day. If you don't do it this week, you're going to feel that crunch in about 60 to 90 days, and you're going to go, where'd all my sales go? And then it's going to take you another 30 days to kind of get that stuff up and running again and that. So when they're prospecting, what do you recommend people kind of do in terms of a strategy for that to make it a little bit less of a grind and to see better results? Is it set up a specific window every day where it doesn't matter? It's like going to the gym. Like, you have to do it. It's the same way that you go to the gym for your bodily health. You've got to do prospecting for the sake of your business. So you got to do it every day from 8 to 9 a.m. Is something like that practical, or how do you overcome that speed bump?
Yeah. So there's two things: is set the appointment with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I color code all my different meeting types, and green for go is my marketing meeting.
Very cool.
And the next thing is setting a daily goal, which is a daily productivity goal.
Mm.
I want to each day reach out to 2 people in my network that I haven't spoken to in the last 3 months. And I want to reach out to 2 people who are specific leads for my business. And the numbers multiply nicely. So that's 10 each a week. That's 40 each a month. And then you're going to have half of those fall away that aren't a fit or non-responsive. And you whittle down then to having enough bona fide leads.
Yeah.
And enough in your funnel that will pay the bills. Because if you're a small business owner and you have mouths to feed, there's a lot of stress that goes along with, oh, am I going to make payroll this week?
Yeah.
And if you can keep your activity levels and your result levels up, you'll be fine.
Yeah, that makes sense. And when you're reaching out to these folks, again, you've mentioned before, phone, email, is the 4-week process you outlined earlier, that's the thing to stick to when you're just getting into the prospecting?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Stick to the 4 weeks. And then after 4 weeks, bear in mind, it takes, this is classic it's about 7 touches or so before you can have a meaningful interaction with someone. Mm-hmm. The 4 weeks, of course, will take you through your first 4. You'll need to figure out for your business and your authentic style, how you will continue to reach out to people so you get to that 7 touches and beyond.
Yeah. So most of the time, I'm assuming it's just introduce yourself. Hey, this is what I do. If you need anything, give me a shout. A nice hat. Bye. And
again, there's tons of resources on marketing, on messaging, on how do I tackle those first interactions that can help people to at least design the content, and then ultimately you'll find your own voice.
That makes a lot of sense. So when you see some of these junior guys starting to reach out and doing this kind of stuff internally, what are some of the struggles that a business owner can look out for when they're hiring their first staff member? Is it, again, I'm going to assume here, this is what I do with my technical staff. We do weekly meetings every Monday, and then every Friday we do a follow-up meeting based on the previous week's goals, just to make sure everyone's on track. Is that a good strategy to have to internally manage your sales staff as well, or how do you recommend that we manage the sales staff?
Well, the first struggle salespeople will have is, who is my ideal customer and who should I be aiming for? Mm-hmm. And once you get square on that, and the next piece is, where do I find those people? And there's the one-to-one marketing, which is you reaching out to specific companies, and then the one-to-many marketing, which is, can you find associations or the like where there's 100 of your ideal customers in one spot? So the one-to-many is a great place to be. In terms of managing the sales team, you need to manage the funnel, and then you need to manage the activities, and those need to be two separate meetings. So an easy cadence is if you meet with your salesperson once a week for an hour to understand who's in the funnel, how many companies are in the funnel, how many phone calls have you been making, how many meetings have you been having, and the like. And by the way, all those are in a dashboard in CRM. So the meeting is to talk about them and dive into that more deeply. Then in week 2, you could have a meeting that's more about, let's look into specific deals you're working on. What have you been saying? What have you been doing? How has that been going? Is it stuck? Is it unstuck? Is it moving nicely? If so, why? So you can capture best practices and replicate that and try to eliminate things that aren't working for you and take them out of your sales process. So it's a 2-week tempo. So 1 week is strategy, high level, 1 week is tactics. The next week is strategy, the next week is tactics. And then monthly, you should have a sales get together where it's a deep dive and understand sales, understand deals that have been brought on, how they're going, so that the salespeople can make a connection between, I did this, I found that, and they're a great customer, or I did this, I found that, to the customer from hell we don't want anymore.
That makes a lot of sense. So I think that answers the majority of my questions, but in relation to you and what you do specifically, you mentioned sales is helping. So what are some of the frequently asked questions, and what kind of issues do most of your clients ask you? So when you're working with an average client, what does an average client of yours look like, and what kind of struggles are they going through?
So my average client is typically a business that is healthy, that has been growing, that the owner is either the rainmaker or the owner has been managing 2 or 3 salespeople, and they reach a point where they feel stuck, that sales productivity or production is lower than it should be, or it was good, but now it's declining. They can't figure out why, or they don't have the time to figure out why. Or it's a business owner who says, we've been doing well, I want to double the business. I can't continue to manage this team. I need some help to manage it and scale it. And so that's who I typically work with. By way of classic challenges that they would have, it is my top of my funnel is not full enough. How do I fill it? Buyers, the middle of the sales funnel goes screaming through to give me a price, and we give them a price, and we get stuck, and the buyer becomes non-responsive. Buyer goes dark. Generally, interestingly, the part where I can't close a deal is not a pain point. It's usually filling the top of the funnel and the middle funnel part. Top of the funnel we've addressed, which is the consistency of doing it day to day. The piece about buyers getting the price and then going dark, generally there's something going on inside the sales process where we don't know the buyer's needs well enough. We are not presenting what we have as an investment towards a better, improved future, the one that the clients told us they want. And we don't know their needs well enough. We haven't determined their buyer's decision-making process. So when they just go dark, we don't have anywhere to turn. We have nowhere to go. So there's a whole bunch of mechanics inside there and things going on. But generally, if you quote too quickly and too early, all you're doing is selling price, and that's really going to hurt you. Interestingly, in sales, if you have something you have to demonstrate and you demonstrate it too early, too quickly in the sale, you often will short circuit the time you had to learn about the buyer's needs. So when you do the demonstration, it's a demonstration of a solution connected to what the buyer told you were their problems.
Yeah.
If you go straight to demo, it's, hey, this is really cool, it's really neat. And then you're leaving the buyer to say, well, here's how it's going to help you. They can't figure it out. They've got a million things going on. And so your sale goes to number 15 on their top 10 list of things they have to work on. Yeah, that's typically what I see at the classic pain points.
I'm starting to understand the title of your book. So selling more by selling less. So it's all about listening, and you got 2 ears and 1 mouth.
As simple as that. Absolutely.
Yeah. Very cool. What's your favorite part about what you're doing? Is it working with startups? Is it working with these established businesses that have all of these moving parts already? Do you like building out those sales machines? What is it that you truly enjoy working with?
Well, my favorite part in the doing is finding the sticking point and resolving it, opening
Mm,
things up. And the joy, the jazz in the job for me is helping people. So to help a business owner make their business into what they dreamed it could be,
mm,
really brings me a lot of satisfaction. And that's because not because the business is this thing and it looks great, but it's this thing that provides for them and their family and their life and their children and their grandchildren sometimes. And it's very, very, very satisfying to help people build something that they thought they could build, but they were stuck, and have it affect them so personally. It's wonderful.
yeah, yeah. I definitely understand what you're saying. As an IT guy, it's also being part of that bigger picture and being the internal, external part of that family is very cool. Um, in terms of tools, when people are working inside of the CRM and these kind of things, do you have any other tools other than the CRM that they're absolutely fundamental and you recommend every business, every sales consultant, every sales rep uses?
Well, I think in general terms, sales is a tough job because of the piece where there's often days and weeks that go by without a lot of positive reinforcement. These days, salespeople now are working from home, and so we're all quite separate.
Hmm.
And it's a very solo endeavor many times. And yes, there's glory when a deal closes, but there's a lot of heavy lifting that goes on in between and rejection and the like. So one tool that's great that I use is subscribe to something, a newsletter that resonates with you or your team, or it fits your company values and it represents that, and have it go into people's inbox every day.
Mm.
And in the weekly meetings, talk about that. What do people get from it? And there's many out there that are motivational, some that are helpful, some that are thought provoking, and often they're not in the realm of sales. They're ones that are outside sales. There's this daily email called the Stoic, and it's all about stoicism. And there's a whole history about that based upon Roman times and Marcus Aurelius and all these people who had this way of looking at life and dealing with challenges. And that comes into your inbox every day, and then you read about it, and it just sometimes gives you that little bit of support, that little bit of, okay, I can go out, I can do it, or some different way to look at a really challenging situation. It's absolutely not a sales thing, but it's super helpful. So maybe there's something in, think about your team, your company, your life that resonates with you and might resonate with them as well.
Yeah. It's very funny to hear you say that because I know a guy who's a financial advisor. He just sales for them. He's his own independent advisor, so of course he's doing sales. And every time I go on my Instagram, I can see it's this person has followed another Stoic page. And I'm just imagining that his whole Instagram in the morning when he's scrolling through it is just all of these Greek and Roman quotes and a lot of this Stoic stuff. And I've followed a couple pages of it as well. And again, like you said, it's tough being in a position of a salesperson. Not a lot of positive reinforcement. As a business owner, you have a lot of those dark periods as well. And it is nice being able to see things that are kind of echoing the sentiments of what you're currently struggling with and being able to kind of get through that. Do you have any other resources or market leaders that you recommend people check out? I know you've mentioned a couple of books already. Is there anything in particular or anyone in particular that you kind of keep up to date with to keep the ideas flowing and keep things fresh?
Well, the Daily Stoic is the one that I get
Mm-hmm.
every day. Again, another one that is absolutely not sales related, called Players Tribune. It's a website. Derek Jeter is behind the site.
Mm-hmm.
It's stories about athletes written by the athletes themselves. And we see the athletes receiving the medals and receiving the trophies, and what we don't see is the hard road that got them there. And I find it very inspirational to see how a lot of these folks came from, they could be any kind of life situation, good, bad, privileged, happy, unhappy, but how they managed to keep striving and working and create something that wasn't there before, this championship mindset that they have. And the business owner and the salesperson and anybody really, every day you have those challenges. And so it gives me a lot of inspiration around, oh, here's a different way to look at something. Here's a way to approach it. So that's something I use. By way of the sales ones in particular, there's so many out there and there's so many different voices. I think you would need to find the voice that resonates with you. If you were just to Google Zig Ziglar, and then every other sales guru would pop up behind that.
Yeah.
And then you could find one that resonates with you.
Awesome. That's great advice. Do you have anything else you want to discuss before we wrap up, or do you feel like we've touched on everything that you wanted to hit?
No, this has been great. Thanks very much for the opportunity to chat with you.
That's awesome. Do you have anything you'd like to promote before we start wrapping it up then?
Well, I do have my book, Sell More by Selling Less. I've been keeping it hard copy on purpose for the last several years. It's intended to be a very easy to digest book, the focus of which is how do you sell value? How do you stop selling features and benefits? And what does all that mean? So that's what's inside the book. It'll be coming out in EPUB and in PDF format as well for electronic consumption. So all the information about that is on my website, robmalec.com.
Awesome. And that's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Absolutely. My phone number's there. All my contact information's there.
Perfect. I'll throw all that stuff down in the links in the description down below as well. So if anyone wants to check that out, they can do that. So again, Rob, thank you so much for coming on today. I think this has been an incredibly educational interview. I hope people find it valuable. Hope it gives everybody a little bit of insight into the world of sales. And everybody, please make sure to check out Rob's book. And yeah, thank you again so much for coming on today, Rob.
You are welcome. My pleasure. Have a great day.
We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.
And I think that does it for today's video. If you could please leave a like on this video, it really helps us out. If you want to see more videos like this, then please hit subscribe. If you have a suggestion for a future video or a guest you'd like to see on the show, please leave a comment down below or email us at techtips@umbrellaitservices.ca. Have a great day and see you all soon.